Hello, welcome back. Today we got some more card reveals. We got all the neutrals, we got the hunter cards, and we have the priest ones. We're gonna go through the neutrals first. First up's Thaddeus, legendary minion. Thaddeus monstrosity, 10 mana, 11/11 undead, taunt. Your odd cost cards cost 1, swaps polarity each turn. What does that mean? It means it's gonna change to your even cost cards cost 1. And that's going to swap whether this is in your hand or on the board. So, depending on what turn you play it, it's going to be either odd or even costed. Very cool, powerful card. Where can we use it? First off, there's actually an OTK we can talk about. The OTK, pretend this Deathwing here is a Thaddeus. We need one more card for this OTK. Just realized. The Alex. So the OTK is you've played Bone Lord to get his effect, and then you go Thaddeus on the odd cost. He has to be, and you go Bran, which will cost 1, Alex, which will cost 1, Zola, the Alex, which costs 1. And then Alex, and that's up to 96 damage, potentially, if the Thaddeus is on the odd cost. This could work really well in Priest, I think, because they have access to Switcheroo, as well as a lot of heal effects to stall out the game, and a lot of card draw to find the combo. They even could run Horn of Rathian if they really need to find their minions even more. And we've already seen in Svalna Priest that you can get to like turn 6 to drop a Bone Lord if you pretend this is the Svalna. You can see they do that pretty often. Also, Priest has access to the Light It Burns, so in matchups where you're worried about silence or transform, whatever, you can go Bone Lord, Light It Burns on the same turn to set up your combo. So good match for Priest, but the OTK can work for any deck because it's all neutral minions. So potential finisher for control warriors or slower decks, if they're interested in running some of these cards anyway. Something like Druid could definitely just run these because they're interested in running Bran, and they can get away with Zola and Alex regardless. And the Thaddeus has some applications because they can discount things like Nourish or Scale of Onyxia potentially as well. Outside of that combo, what applications are there? It's kind of hard to cheat out for a lot of decks, but it's possible. The thing with the card, you need to cheat out, but also be able to take advantage of his effect. So you need to be able to run high cost cards that you want to reduce to one cost, and that's kind of limited based on your class, really. There's not a whole lot for some of the classes, like Rogue, for instance. Like, there's not much you need to cheat out. So even though Rogue has the ways to cheat out through Master Revelant shenanigans with the Death Rattles, they don't really have the payoff once it's cheated out. But a very cool card. It's going to be very disgusting if you evolve a Null into it, because if it survives, you're going to just play your Brucharm for 1 mana, play your Tiny Toys for 1 mana, etc., etc., and kind of end the game if you get an early Null into this. It's a very cool 10 cost card. Okay, next one. We have Mistake. It's a 1 mana 1/3 all. Has all minion types, so an amalgam for 1 mana. So you can actually curve like amalgams up to 4 mana now, I believe, in Wild. Is this a good card? You'd kind of assume it would be, but what deck actually needs this? I'm not sure. The main application, I think, if you look at the 1-cost minions, there's for beasts there is already a 1/3 and Druid and Hunter. For Murlocs, we already have neutral 1/3s, so we're not really filling any holes with those. The only other ones like Totems and Dragons spring to mind. Undead, I don't think you really need it. If you're DK, you already have the Body Bagger, plus some other undead that are better. So Dragons could work because it's a very cheap minion, And if you're playing Kaz, you need 4 other dragons this game. So if you're playing the amalgams, and currently like dragons are fairly expensive, there's not very good early ones, but you could fill a deck with Amber Whelp, Amalgam of the Deep, and this new one mana amalgam, and then suddenly it's not so hard to activate Kaz cheaply. So maybe some potential there, which there wasn't before. Okay, moving on. Lost Exarch. 4 mana, 5/4 undead. Death Rattle, spend all your mana. Summon that many 2/2 zombies with Rush. It's a very weird effect. I believe if you've not spent mana on your turn, it kind of stays there until your next turn starts. So, say it's turn 8, you play this, and you have 4 mana left over, and you just pass. I think if they kill it, you would get 4 2/2 zombies. This is like a very high value card, in that if you play it and they don't kill it, next turn you could maybe get an Army of the Dead, potentially. 5 mana worth for 2/2 zombies, which is very good. It's just if they kill it, you don't get anything. And if you can't trade it off, you don't get anything. And it does cost you your turn still, so it's not completely insane. I feel like it's just going to be busted in Arena, perhaps. But I don't know if it's got a place in Standard. Even with like Rogue, which can make the death rattles cheaper, I don't know if this is good enough. And Druid that can trigger the death rattles, I still don't know if this is good enough. But it's a very interesting card, and one we probably have to play over to figure out. There's going to be a lot of games where your opponent doesn't kill this, and then they're kind of in a bad situation where, like, if they play a minion that this can trade into, suddenly they're face down with a board of 2/2s on the next turn, which maybe in board versus board matchups could be an issue for them. Okay, we got finally the Dark Fallen Shadow, another neutral. 3 mana, 3/3, rush mana first 6, gain reborn. It's an undead as well. It doesn't look very undead to me. It looks kind of like an elf, but I don't know World of Warcraft lore too much. So yeah, kind of like a Restless Mummy once you get to 6 mana. Before 6 mana, I mean, it's a 3-drop undead. Priest might care about that in some worlds, since they want to play in a very heavy undead deck. But yeah, it doesn't seem that good currently. Maybe Druid because they're ramping anyway. Could get away with a card like this. Manifest 6 isn't too hard to get to, it's just the effects and the initial stat line just aren't crazy good. But it's not crazy bad either, so yeah, kind of just one of those meh neutrals that might find a place in certain decks, but it's not going to be insane. Alright, now we got Hunter. They have a 1 mana 1/1 Trinket Tracker. Battlecry, draw a 1-cost spell, undead. So kind of similar to Knight of Anointment and Paladin, which saw a lot of play throughout its year in Standard. Hunter, unlike Paladin, they don't actually play as many 1-cost spells, even though they have a lot of them. Most of them don't see that play. The only one that really sees plays right now is Tracking. So it's not entirely free to include this into your deck. There aren't terrible ones, like the Ricochet shot's fine. And in fact, you could do a combo into your deck where you play Ricochet shot and Urchin Spines. These two combo pretty well together to kind of give you a sort of cheap board clear. But the problem is it's a bit inconsistent, these cards. This 1-drop suddenly makes it not very inconsistent. It adds a lot of consistency to it. So yeah, there's that combo potentially, but there's also just, you can just run Tracking and this 1-drop in your deck. Maybe that's just fine too. But yeah, kind of interesting. It's obviously looks like a strong card. In practice, is it going to be that strong? Who knows? Next we have zombies. It's a new secret for Hunter. 2 mana. After your opponent plays a minion, summon 4/1/1 zombies to attack it. And if we look at the zombie, it's an undead and a beast, which is relevant. There's several infused cards for Hunter, which some of them are pretty good. Like this one, the Frenzied Fangs, gets activated. You could go Coin Secret. They're probably going to have to play a minion into it. Then suddenly you have a follow-up play of Frenzy Fangs. That's pretty nice. There's this one as well. Gets infused by it. And there's a Shadehound, which is hard to infuse, to be honest, because you need 3 beasts, but the zombies are beasts. So one secret could actually activate the Shadehound. So potentially a lot... there's a sort of Rat Hunter maybe making a comeback. Also the Altamore. 1 bees infuses him halfway, so this gets a lot stronger too. It's actually a kind of a good secret. It's kind of like Snipe back in the day, but better against stuff which has fewer than 4 health. And even if they got 4 health, you got that infuse effect. But I guess the downside of it is you do need the board space. And that is a very relevant downside, because having having 4 board slots available isn't a guarantee, especially if you're running the Wild Siege, which tend to take up a lot of board space, even in their dormant form. You might have to make some choices in your deck whether you actually want to be running Wild Seeds alongside the secret, but it does look pretty good. It kind of reminds me a bit of Explosive Runes from Mage, which at the time was like, oh, it's kind of like a Snipe with a bit of upside, but because it kind of leveled itself out no matter what minion your opponent played, it tended to be like really, really just good all the time. And I kind of get the same feeling for this one. It looks like a Snipe, but there's just going to be so many situations where it's just positive tempo for you that I think it's going to be a very good secret. And finally for Hunter, they got Faithful Companions. This is a 7 mana spell. Discover a beast from your deck and summon it. Mana first 10, also summon a copy of it. So King Crush, Mountain Bear, Hydrolodon, they're basically the ones you get from this. The Hydrolodon's not great because you won't actually give the 3/1s rush. If we have a look here. Part of the battle cry give your heads rush, so it's not actually great to summon this out because you just summon 2 3/1s and a Hydrolodon and not be able to attack anything. But potentially for King Crush and Mountain Bear, I suppose it can work. Getting to 10 mana is kind of difficult, and you also need to not draw your King Crush if you want to do a double King Crush. But there's a lot of burst damage potentially for this deck. One thing you can do, which might be strong enough, is if you run Twin Bow Terracoil and you activate this on turn 6, then you can double up this spell on turn 7 and pull out, I don't know, 2 Mountain Bears, for instance, and that's suddenly looking kind of decent. It does require a lot of setup. It does require you to draw in a certain way, and have maybe a poor turn 6 before you do your turn 7, and you can't coin out this play either. So I don't know how strong it actually is. It kind of looks weak on first glance, to be honest. But that's the potential I see in the card anyway. Moving on to Priest, they got this spell Cannibalize, 4 mana shadow spell. Destroy a minion, restore its health to all friendly characters. This looks really good to me. This is there's a Kaz treasure called Vampiric something, Bites maybe, which is a 3 mana spell that destroys a minion and restores health to you equal to the minion's health. So this is basically that, but an extra mana, and you can just put it in your deck. And if you're like a slower style priest, I think this is very good. Basically means you get to destroy the most damage on your opponent's board and heal health to get you towards like your late game AoEs and stuff. 4 mana to destroy a minion isn't great, but the fact that you get to heal too just buys you like an extra turn, which is a huge deal if you're trying to get to like Whirlpool and light bombs and stuff like that. It means also like playing a big threat against priests not gonna actually net you much damage most of the time. And if you're trying to play around clean the scene by going big and wide, the cannibalizer is basically going to say, well, you didn't push any damage this turn because I ate your big thing and healed up. Kind of reminds me a bit of Light Shower Elemental, which is a 6 mana 6/6 taunt, which is bad tempo, but the fact that it's got the healing attached to it suddenly makes it a playable card. And similarly, this is a 4 mana destroy a minion, which is bad tempo, but with the heal attached, I think it is a good card. And for slower priest styles, I think this will make the cut. Next for priest is a different style. We've got Rotting Necromancer, 4 mana 5/4 undead, Battlecry Dredge. If it's an undead, deal 5 to the enemy hero. This is a very aggressive card. Because you want to improve the consistency of this going off, deal 5 so much, you need to kind of run a very undead heavy deck. So it's not going to be the slower style of Undead Priest, which is only really running the 3-drops. I think it needs to be the one which is running lots of 1-drop undeads, etc., just so this is effective. And this is going to be like the top end of the curve, basically. And a very aggro deck. This is kind of insane. Like, if you imagine aggro Demon Hunter, for instance, having this 4-drop with the deal 5 potential on turn 4, like, you're just going to die so quickly. And with the next spell as well, Mindseer, 1 mana, deal 2. If it dies, deal 3 to the enemy hero. With these combined, I could see the aggro Shadow Priest suddenly having like a critical mass of damage, so it's very hard to survive them. And this last card, it looks very good too. It's kind of like Touch from Warlock, except it deals damage instead of healing you. And it just generally looks really good. And this is currently going to break wild because there's an OTK with Radiant Elemental, Test Subject, and Reborn, which maybe you've heard about. But if not, I'll let you figure it out. And that can OTK potentially on turn 2. But yeah, this is just generally a very good card, I think. Within an aggro-ish style. A deck that cares about killing you. You could be even a mid-range Shadow Priest, which aims to win through the 3 mana death rattles that deal damage to your opponent's face. I just think it's a generally good card. So Priest looks like they did pretty well on this mini set. Hunter less so, I'd say, but I am very excited for the secret. I think that's very nice. But yeah, that's it for today's video. I'll be updating you guys more when more cards are released. Cheers!